Are we officially on?
You are officially on.
All right, I am officially recording. Okay, that'll start us off. Welcome everybody. There's a few of us here spaced out in the terminology of room and not being spaced out. And everybody else is zooming in. We've got Robert and Kim and Katie and Logan and Brett and JJ are all on the Zoom. I don't think there's anybody on the list other than that. So welcome those that are here. We will begin. I hadn't given notice of this before. Logan Shumway, you there? Are you up for a thought or a prayer? It's your turn on the cycle.
Okay, yep, we're good.
Okay, and we'll follow that way, the pledge.
Okay. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be able to have City Council meeting tonight, grateful for all our many blessings and the good circumstances we find ourselves, and please bless us that we'll be able to have good information and good judgment and make good decisions for this area, and we're thankful for the storms that we've had recently, and ask that thou please bless us with more. We're thankful for all that we have, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have an amended agenda with two new items that have been added, E and F. If nobody's objection, we'll move E up to the first spot, as we have somebody here to speak to that, and that'll enable them to move on, if that's all right with everybody. Otherwise, people had occasion to review the minutes and financial disbursements. Are there any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minutes and financial disbursements.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Monson and Turk. This is really hard with everybody like this. If I get the names wrong, just jump on me. All in favor?
Aye.
Or give thumbs up, and that way we know for sure if we've heard you. So, any opposed? Okay, moving along then. I didn't see anything on here that would require a declaration of a conflict of interest. If anybody saw anything particular, now's the time to let us know. Hearing none, we would move to open forum. Unless Robert's here to speak to open forum, you're here for an agenda item that we just moved up. Just here to listen. Have we had any email, electronic open forum comments? No? Okay. Moving right into departmental reports then. Water, Terry Ecker is out of town. Is anybody reporting on water specifically?
The only thing he asked was if you had any questions, I could take them to him and he would answer them when he got back next week.
Okay. It's usually pretty straightforward.
When does the water year start? Is that
October 1.
okay? So we're in the meeting.
Okay. Moving on to police report, Chief Bradford.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. October was about par for the course with the rest of the year. We've had a slight increase every month on our incidents and citations. Officer Sanchez has finished his field training program. That's why his numbers are a little extra high. As he was riding with people, he got to do the brunt of the work because he needed to do it for his training to understand how to get it done. He's been on his own now for a week or so, and he's been doing very well. If he has any questions, he's not shy about asking. He seems to be doing very good. We picked up several dogs this month. We were able to get one pack of dogs that was starting to run around and become a nuisance. We was able to trap 5 of them. We've rehomed them. with Samantha Bergman. 2 other dogs were picked up because they had bitten someone. They did their quarantine time, showed no problems. They were given back to the owners with citations for dog at large. And Nicole went to the what we call NIBRS training. It's a reporting system for national statistics. She's getting up to speed on that to teach us all how to work that a little better on our reporting. That's about it for us. Any questions?
See shaking heads and looks like everybody's content. Are we good with that, everyone? Okay, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Rec report, do we have David or do we have somebody else chiming in on that?
David is also out this week, and I think the only information he told me was whatever was in the report was what he had to report.
Right. And it's all pretty straightforward, and we'll be talking about our facility use and kind of the rec program will be combined into that last item.
Yeah, I talked to David quite a bit last week, and he wanted me to talk about that, but where we have it as an agenda item now, we'll save that.
Yeah, we'll just slide it in under that, so we'll be fine with that. Okay, moving right along then into the agenda, item E, we will handle first. Who's running with that, Logan or Cheryl?
I'll let Cheryl start, and then I'll give my input.
Yeah, I think we have a couple different things to discuss. I think because rec is your area, and discussing the sports that are happening right now, what to do with that. I think that's planned to discuss. And then use of the facility in general, I think is just with everything going on right now, I think it's good for the city council to make a decision. And we do have the Christmas fair that usually happens the first weekend in December every year. There are some vendors, Paul Rogers here being one of those, that would like to be able to move forward with that project. And so I think he needs a determination from the city on that building. So anyway, do you want to speak to us about your thoughts on that?
Sure. I'm actually here representing quite a few vendors and townspeople that would like to have this fair happen. The people in this town are anxious for something normal to happen, especially for Christmas. And we're well aware of the risks, everything else, and we're all very willing to follow the COVID rules, the spacing, the masks, everything else like that. So we'd like to find a happy medium and still continue forward with the tree for all or Christmas fair, whatever it's called.
Tree for all, that's it. That is it, tree for all.
Yeah. The vendors have been preparing all year for this, and it's kind of a blow to not have it. I mean, so it is important, and I think we should just not brush it off because of somebody might get sick. So that's how we see it.
Okay, and this will play, the decision here will play into the discussion of the final item too. So anyway, it's good to get whatever input we can. Any discussion on specifically on events?
Yeah, so
let's do that and then see how it's affected by our last agenda item as well.
Yeah, I think they'll play kind of into each other a little bit, but I had talked to David about it, and he's had several requests to have receptions, wedding receptions specifically at the rec center because there's nowhere else to do it. They can't do it in churches. They can't do it at the Arts and Event Center. And I just mentioned to him that I thought it was in our best interest to tell people we're not doing anything right now until we can make a decision as to what we are going to do. We have our events policy that we have, and that might be worth looking into. It requires insurance. It requires a lot of other things that we've come up with. I don't know what the best answer is, but I didn't think it was a great idea to start saying yes to wedding receptions and closing that down for those things. So that's why we're to this point, is we need to make a decision as to what we want to do and have, that pretty straightforward across the board, I think.
So I'm just curious, years past for the tree for all, has the city been involved in that event? Is that why we've used the facility, or was it actually used following the events policy? Do you
Can I
know?
speak to that?
Yeah.
I helped very minimally last year with some of the planning, but it's kind of just been something that happened through the city. I don't know if they've sponsored it somewhat in the sense of giving Santa, I think they give Santa some money for presents. Is that right, Kim? Yeah, that's the extent of our involvement. And other than that, they usually fill out it's an event application and
It's been a private entity or coalition. It's evolved over
Yeah.
time a little
Isn't
bit.
it
but it's-
Can I cut in here for a second? So in the last couple of years, what the Tree for All has done is they've done the special events application, just like everybody else. And then we as a city have went in and donated some funds to help with their booths. I think we've done the Santa workshop the last couple of years, but they have went in. I'm just pulling that up right now. Looks like they have been doing the Tree for All thing just to gather the information on what they're doing, just going through the process.
Hasn't it been Edge of the Cedars that does that event typically? Like, is it that the group that puts it together?
They started. I don't know if they've been doing it recently.
Sorry,
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, it's kind of changed. I think Razors did it one year,
Right.
Okay.
and another.
Well, just to clarify, when Logan says Edge of the Cedars, it's not the museum, it's the theater group.
Correct. With an S,
Seekers.
not,
Or
yeah, yeah.
So,
And so you're looking tonight for some sort of direction, so you know what to do if you need to find another location, or if
Yes, so
the
we
city-
find another location perhaps. Well, I don't know how many vendors will be able to have come do this. Some of them are like, no, we don't want to do it this year because of COVID, but some still really want to do. So it's hard to get a number on, we don't know how big the place will be, who's coming, who's not. But this will definitely help us in the right direction, make decisions.
well, you have the state position on social gatherings, which this would be one. And so that's going to lead us right into that other discussion as to how does the city respond to the directives from the state.
I can speak to that. I did talk with Kirk today specifically about this issue. And he said that on the state COVID website, there is a events template that the sponsoring person, the person that wants to have this event, would need to fill out, assuring that they would be willing to follow the social distancing and mask mandate, that essentially that person that signs that would be the one that would be in charge of enforcing that. And if we had that taken care of, then our local health department would be okay with this event going forward.
Okay, we need a comment from our city attorney, Kendall.
The one thing that would go, so the defined term for the event host, I think it's actually I think that is actually what it is, event host or gathering host. It's a defined term in the order. And whoever signs that, it's not just, yeah, I'll make sure that they'll do it. For the meetings, all intents and purposes, it appears as though the state of Utah is pretty gung-ho with this particular order, at least for the next 2 weeks. And then if it gets extended, we'll just have to see. But they appear to be pretty gung-ho about enforcement. They're not leaving it up to the local law enforcement, for instance. The businesses are being, that's going to be enforced through the Department of Labor, through administrative fines and things like that. So whoever signs that just needs to recognize that it's not just a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey, yeah, I'll make sure people social distance and wear masks. If something goes south or if someone reports you, there's actually a reporting mechanism on the state's Department of Labor, I believe, website. And if someone turns them in, they are going to investigate every single one of them. And so they're taking a different approach is all I'm saying. And so whoever is willing to sign that needs to just be aware that it's not just the local guys aren't going to do anything too, because the state might. So I just wanted to throw that information out there for all involved.
Okay, so if there's an event sponsor, an individual or a group of individuals that assign somebody to be their spokesman, but it's held in a city property.
There may be some responsibility on the owner of the property as well. A lot of it goes back to the event sponsor, which is defined as the person who is, or the event host, which is defined as the host or owner of the property. And now whether they define that as they're assuming that the host is going to also be the owner, or whether it's both, I don't know. We're 2 days into this, so I don't know. I can't give you that answer.
Okay, so what's the anticipated date of the tree for all?
First weekend of December.
So we're right into this difficulty where we don't know what the rules are going to be the first weekend of December, and they could change the day before. And then you have people that have plans and anticipation, and here we are again.
So Katie, I appreciate you asking that question, because I thought the same thing. I thought that the social gatherings is different according to this new mandate. The social gatherings is different from events, and there was a specific section for events. So, and what I understood was exactly what you said. As long as they're wearing their masks and they're following the guidelines, that events can occur as long as someone takes responsibility. Is that correct?
That's accurate, but all I was saying is whoever is taking that responsibility needs to recognize that it's like a
real deal.
Honest to
If someone turns
goodness.
them in,
Yes,
yeah.
I believe if somebody's willing to run with that event and they can work with Kirk to sign off on it and have everything in place, and they realize that they're on point to be watching that. If there's a person count per space, they limit the people. If they have to move people apart or call somebody out for a mask or whatever, Kirk, he'll have the rules specifically on that can help this group or party comply with that. He's our local expert that's going to be able to give them the parameters, and they should be able to do it. It's a private enterprise, which is a little different than a city enterprise. I think if the city was the sponsor, I might have a different answer than if a private entity is the sponsor, even though it's on a city property. I say go for it. See if you can make it work. I don't know how the council feels about that. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, sounds me.
Can I ask a question? If, with our special events policy, we've asked that the sponsor provide the insurance, and I've got a text going to Jeremy because I can't remember if we have provided the insurance for that event, which if we have, we may want to check that with our insurance company if we're gonna do that, and we're gonna cover that insurance where we're in this new realm of the world. So just a thought out there.
Okay, well, we'll have an answer back from that by the time the group is ready to work with the health department to make the arrangements.
Okay.
So I thought I heard Logan say I'm okay with that, or was that?
Yep,
Okay.
Logan. Me.
All right, Logan Monson,
Yeah, that's, reasonable to me.
Robert Turk.
I'm okay with that. I just am concerned, maybe we find out more about this, if liability comes back to us because it's our property.
Yeah, we need an answer to that if we're involved in the liability or a secondary to that, whatever that might be.
But that's my concern.
Okay, and Kendall can look into that, I suppose. Katie.
I concur with Robert. I just want to make sure our liability's out of it, but I don't have a problem with moving forward with it if we can do it safely.
And Cheryl.
And I concur as well.
Okay, well, you got 6 votes saying, if mine's a vote, mine's an opinion. They have 5 votes in an opinion. It says work with Kirk Bench, line this thing out, and you might want to have a conversation with Kendall so that you know where we're at. And Kendall, if you could look into how's the city playing to the liability, especially if we're the insurance on it, then we probably have shared liability.
Is Kim in her office?
She is.
If she would print the mandate, I can come to her door and grab it because it's in the defined terms. If she printed it, I can look at it right now. I don't know.
Sure. Anyway, we're of a mind to move forward and try to make this thing happen the best way we possibly can. And Kendall can help with clarifying a couple of those issues. But even if city has joint liability with that, I say we still go for it. That's where I'm at.
I think we do with any event.
Yeah, by default. And whether you
By default,
legally do or
right.
not, they're gonna go after the one with the deep pockets. So we always do. If it's on our property, we're on the list.
And I think there's an event forum that's on our website. Is that right, Pratt?
Yep, yeah, you can find others.
Yeah, so Pratt can help you with that. Kirk can help you with how you lay it out. Kendall can make sure that you know what you're signing up for. And let's try to make it happen. We gotta do something.
Yeah.
You know, it's gotta.
Well, the great thing about that facility is that it's so big.
It's big.
It's so
It's
big.
huge.
It's so easy to keep people separate where you don't get that anywhere else in town.
I think we should be able to make
Other
it
than a
happen.
church, and we
It's
can't
so
use churches.
large that it should be able to work. So, okay, we're good with that then. Yeah, Kirk's your first spot. Katie can help you get lined up with him.
If you just call, he's easy to get a hold of. If you call public health and you can attach it, it's like an automatic directory or whatever. Just type in his name and it will send it right to him.
Clifford. Is that
Kirk
Kirk
It
is
must be like
public
he-
health. He's not here.
Kirk Binge.
Yeah. Someone else is not here.
Yeah,
He's
we
likely,
can get you set up. You'll know who you need to talk to.
what Katie said, he's likely gonna send you to that event checklist that Katie mentioned. It's on the state website under restrictions in the event. It's pretty clear on there. It's pretty good. He's probably gonna likely send you there, so might as well look at that anyway to see what they're even asking for.
You're having any trouble finding that? Cheryl will help you find it, won't you?
Absolutely.
I'll volunteer
Stop by.
Cheryl to help you find
Stop
it.
by, we can find it.
It won't be a problem finding it. It might be a little tricky making it work, but we really need to try. We gotta make it work. We do. Okay, good.
Scott's gonna be Santa.
I'll get growing my beard.
The redheaded Santa.
That would be the best.
All right. So moving on then to item A, the tentative resolution appointing city administrator. So the council and our two top candidates have all been informed for public information. We had two top candidates that interviewed. Both did fantastically well. Both have support of council. One of them has asked for some time to review some of the parameters of what that agreement might be if we were to move forward. And so I talked to both candidates and said that I would like to give them the time to review that, and they'll get back with me and say whether they're in or out before that final decision. And so that will be pending, and depending on the timing of that, I kind of favor doing it in our regular city council meeting. But depending on the timing of those things, we may call a special meeting just for that one thing, but I don't like calling a special meeting if we don't need to, but if we need to in order to move forward in a timely manner, that's on the table.
I just want to tell
yes.
Paul, thanks for coming and speaking to us.
Absolutely, Paul, you're good. You don't have to hang around
We have the public hearing here from you guys.
for all this
rather than
boring
me.
stuff, but
Appreciate
thanks
it.
so much for coming and
You
voicing
can
that.
stay, you don't have to go.
It's pretty
Thank you,
exciting.
Paul. Appreciate
It
it.
is truly exciting.
See ya.
Item B, resolution, mid-year adjustments, Kim Palmer. We've known we're coming. You're a little weak on your mic. I don't know if you can
Oh, I'm
position.
sorry. I'm right
Tiny
here,
bit.
I promise.
Okay, you're good.
Pratt, do you want to go back to that screen? If you can. We talked about these at the last council meeting and you asked for them to come back in resolution form. And so these are the mid-year payroll adjustments that include the COLA and the salary scale stuff. And so those are the ones. The top one is the effect it has on the general fund, and we would take that from the police department and move it to those other departments to cover those increases. And then the next section is the impact it would have on the enterprise funds. That capital projects is, we received some insurance coverage for the roof of this building, and that is those are those funds, sorry. And then we are transferring 60,000 from savings for the parking lot paving. So those are the adjustments. And then there was a need to repair a transformer in the electric fund. So we're bringing that out of savings to take care of that.
So the payroll adjustments are the credit of 5945 in the general fund and the 8515 in the enterprise funds?
Yes. Those are the ones we talked about last time when Jeremy was still here.
Yes, I remember. And half year, correct?
Correct.
Didn't we talk about showing both options, not just one?
And my understanding was when it came back, you wanted it with the COLA and with the salary adjustment.
For the half
Showed
year.
both of those at the last meeting. I didn't understand that, so. And we don't have to pass this tonight. I can redo that if you'd like.
So your question was whether we were looking at the half year or the whole year. Is that your question, Logan?
No, last time there was a spreadsheet shown that showed different options, more not just the one. There was one that I think just showed the COLA and one that showed the compensation as well. And I didn't know that we had said one way or the other. In fact, I mean, I think I'm remembering not saying one way or the other.
So to have numbers for each of the options as opposed to that. I thought people were favoring the half year, but you're thinking we requested numbers for each of them so we could look at the actual impacts.
Well, just COLA or COLA and increases? So
I think what Logan's saying is he thought we were showing if we just did COLA, what the impact would be and what the impact would be if we did COLA and the salary increase.
Or the half.
I wanted to see those two differences, correct, Logan?
That's what was shown last time. And then my understanding was that was just going to be shown in more detail with a decision on any direction.
So do we want to, we're not pressed for time on this then, do we want to have that come back with the numbers for each of the options and then we say, okay, we're going with option A, B, or C?
I like that. I mean, I think if we have time to do that, we take our time and do it right.
Because then we really see what the differences are.
I mean, I just thought that was literally what we decided last time. So I was just,
Okay.
yeah.
No, it's kind of ringing a bell with me that way. So we got one kind of saying, yeah. Where's everybody else on that?
Yeah, so we're talking about showing these same numbers, one with just COLA and one with the increase. One with COLA and the increase and one with just COLA, but these same numbers and how they affect the funds, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That
sounds good to me.
Last time.
Right.
Okay, I can do that. I'll just do two resolutions, one that's just COLA and one that's COLA and the increase.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. We got three at least requesting that, and so okay. It's easy enough. It doesn't hurt to take your time and make sure we're doing what we intend to do. So
won't take very long. I'll have that ready for you.
So since it was presented here as a possible resolution, I think what we ought to do is table that by motion and so that it's brought back.
I'll motion that we table the resolution 11-10-2020-2, the mid-year budget adjustment.
I'll second it.
It's Monson and Bowers, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll see that in a couple of weeks. CARES Act distribution, Kim Palmer.
Okay, part of our discussion at the last meeting was how to spend that additional money that we got. And I did notify them that we would like to have that additional amount. And I'm not sure that it's been deposited into our account yet or not. It left us with $196,000, $196,566 to take care of. Working with Jeremy before he left, and I've been working with Pratt and with JJ to come up with some of these numbers. These are just about as close as we can come without asking for bids. We looked at doing some technology. There's a need for the laptops. I believe JJ wanted 2 or 3 laptops for his police cars. There's a need for some computers at the police station. We discussed the need for some laptops for the staff here to have in case they need to work from home. Then we would have those built so that they would be set up that you could log into your computer right from home on them. I spoke with Diane, and she was supposed to get back with me to let me know if the judge needed a new computer. He currently, when he holds court, has to use Diane's computer because his won't run the software. And then we did talk about the phone system. Pratt did some research on doing an upgrade to the council room, bringing in a new TV, a new system that way with TVs that would drop down from the ceiling for the audience to be able to see a little bit more up to date on our technology in there. The court, this building, and the visitor center are all in need of security systems. That number on the police radios, that would be the new 800 megahertz that the county is going to, maybe JJ can answer any specifics about that. But that amount includes radios for the vehicles and handhelds. Then Corey called me, and he's probably going to need a couple of radios too. So we're probably looking more at about 50 on that, maybe 45 on that. And then Pratt will explain the 6-page marketing spread. And then we need to do some work at the visitor center. And then I'll let Pratt talk about his gift card idea.
Yeah, my question on the security systems, hadn't we at one time talked about security cameras, not just at the visitor center, but like at Centennial and whatnot? Or is this just for the visitor center?
We did talk about some of those at the park, and we kind of estimated that a little bit high so that we could put them in where they need to go. And if we need to get some at the park, we certainly would do that.
And it has it at the court and admin as well, Robert.
I had a question where we're talking about we might be forced to have people working from home, but I was curious about the security protocols on how that works. I know some people work from home, and it's quite an elaborate security protocol for that connection. They're not just using Chrome remote desktop, so I'm assuming there's some kind of approved thing that people know works that has the security that it needs to have.
So you have a VPN set up, Kim?
What we did is I worked with Executech. He set up some stuff for me so that I could work from home. So when I was out a couple of days waiting for test results, I actually just logged right into my computer from home through a VPN. And I can't remember the name of the other system. If I was home, I could tell you. And it's secured through our firewall. It gives me access through it to get to my computer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I just thought I had, so. Anyway, comments, questions, elaboration, Pratt?
Yeah, just quickly on the 6-page marketing spread. That additionally was a 2-page article that we had budgeted for. In that time frame, we received more money, and Utah.com has partnered with an additional magazine called Outside Magazine, and that would reach close to 110,000 people, 110,000 prints versus the 32,000 prints. So for well over triple the reach, we're paying about just double. We had about 4,000 budgeted and go up to 10. And then we get 4 additional pages in that magazine, which is visiting off the beaten path areas, which fits us very well. So that's where that would go. The business and resident activity, I was at a conference in person this last week, was really good to be out of the office and back to some of those normal activities over in Cab. And King County did a $20,000 gift card giveaway with their community. And so they spent $20,000 at locally owned stores, restaurants, different, gas stations, things like that. And then they just did giveaways through social media, 2 or 3 a week until those were all gone. So it's kind of a good way to just get some money into the businesses, and then it also incentivizes our community to go out and shop, especially with Christmas and Thanksgiving coming around. I think it would be a good way to get people in. And then I had the thought, the people that don't have social media, for example, if my mom doesn't have Facebook, I can enter her, so that people can enter friends and families that may never see it, but we can still reach them that way to where it truly is a way to get everyone involved and everyone out into the community, especially during the holiday season. So just an idea there. I thought it was super interesting. I thought it would fit and be a good moral boost for the community. So,
This is Logan. What's the stipulations or requirements for this money? What is the language on it? Do we have that?
So anything that I apologize, my printer's printing that stuff to Kindle. Everything that I have looked into, the stuff on this list is completely okay. It's all approved use. The guidelines on that are pretty broad, and I've been in contact with other cities. I've done some research on what's being done around the country with these dollars, and so far everything on there fits right in line. Anything that we can tie to COVID.
Yeah, and more specifically, the intent of my question is to find out, well, what's okay and what's not. I'm not so much worried about these things not being okay. It's knowing what kind of envelope we're dealing with. Ideally, we'll have stuff that makes the residents' tax bill ultimately cheaper. And I think some of these things, start to go that way. But let's make sure that that's the driving, motivation on all of these, or just, the first question we ask, hey, what can we buy that the citizens already are having to buy that we can reduce the tax bill? And really, I think you could almost, if it's pretty broad, that's why I'd like to see the language. But if we can say that we're economically impacted by COVID, anything reducing people's ultimate tax bill, maybe that falls in. I don't know, but I just want to make the point that that's what we should be driving towards with any of these purchases.
That's a good thought. And I wondered about the radios. I thought everything moved to 800 megahertz a long time ago. So apparently not. How are we only now getting to 800 megahertz? I thought things were moving there 15 years ago when I was in the radio business.
I'm going to defer to JJ on that. He spoke with Jason on that. It has to do with the new system. So.
Yeah, they're just setting up the new megahertz or the 800 megahertz towers around our area that we can start using.
Okay.
The county's just barely switching over in the last several months to get the 800s in their trucks and their handhelds. So we're just starting to follow suit down here. We're just, I guess, slow and catching up with the rest of the world, I guess.
Okay, well, and so that's where things are going, and the 400 band will move to something else, or it won't be viable for what we want to do with it anymore. So I think this is a thing that fits right into what Logan Shumway was saying.
Yes.
We're going to move to 800 megahertz. If we can do it with this money as opposed to our regular property tax money, that's a huge benefit. So I like that line of thinking. If we're just buying something just because, or are we buying something that we need anyway, and we can alleviate the tax burden a little at the same time, and it's a legit thing, I like it.
Well, I think that's kind of what we've looked at is what fits the guidelines for the COVID dollars and what are we in need of.
Right.
And I think, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, that stuff on there would fit both of those requests.
Well, so getting, you know, an upgrade to the, I don't know how it's listed there, but the upgrade to the stuff there. I mean, that's good. And that's something that, hey, if the dollars are going to go elsewhere, then I'm for spending them, I guess. But that's something that we wouldn't have bought otherwise. So there, you know, hopefully there's a better purpose, something else that we could buy that's not just an extra versus, anyways, if that makes sense. I mean, because we don't need to upgrade the meeting room there. I mean, it's plenty adequate. Again, not that that's a bad thing, but if we could replace that with something that we had to get versus would be nice to get, that would be better.
Well, that's the only one that I made a note on there. It was like council room, question mark.
Well, the laptops, I question the price of the radios. Is that real? That $42,000?
Yes.
And that seems like a lot to me. Holy cow.
They're about $4,300 a piece. I have the bid from Jason. He shared that with us. They're very expensive. And we were gonna, as far as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, JJ, we were gonna have to move to those eventually.
Yeah,
Right.
Eventually the radios we've got right now will become obsolete probably, so it's going to be something.
The police salaries is definitely something that takes away from the tax burden on the general fund, but
The phone system is a huge chunk of that technology piece.
oh, okay.
It's not, I mean, like I saw that too, and I'm like, well, like, I don't know what kind of laptops y'all are buying, but
Yeah.
then you add everything in and the court computers and the phone system's pretty big.
And the phone system is apparently is problematic and is just not getting the job done. Is that, or it can't step up to the next level of technology it needs to do? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. The phone system we have right now, we don't have any, nobody to help us with it right now. And the new system, we worked with a company and had them work us up a bid. It would be one that we would be able to easily transfer it to, let's say Lisa was out on quarantine. All the phone calls coming to the city office would go through Lisa still, and then she would disperse them from home. We can transfer to cell phones. It's just more robust with a little bit more service. They work with Executech, who is our computer people. We've only looked at the one company, but we were impressed with what they could offer and the service they could give us.
One of the things we discussed in the last meeting was that our TRT funds have been reduced drastically. And so the council had approved with advice and consent an allotment of, I believe it was $30,000 to go towards that.
Correct. And this 10,000 on here is in addition to that.
Okay, so that's somewhere else. These are the new funds and the leftover funds.
Yes,
correct?
Okay.
So, Jim or somebody else, could you guys get that language and how it defines what can or can't be spent on and email that out?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
And I like the, I agree with Logan. I feel like it shouldn't, if we're not gonna be able to give a tax decrease to our residents, we need to spend the dollars on what's gonna have the biggest impact for our city as a whole. And I like the business card giveaway. I can see the benefits to the residents and to the, that's kind of a conglomerate of covering the entire city and the businesses as well. I like that. Personally, I'd like to see more money allocated to that.
I'd take the council room upgrade and slide it down. I'd have to see a lot more compelling to the whiteboard works and I think we get fine without,
Yeah. I agree.
without televisions lowering out or the ceiling, you know, I don't know, we're not Provo or Salt Lake.
The one thing I will say, so before all this happened, Jeremy wanted this projector replaced. So that's kind of where this came up, was at least for this system to replace it, like you can get a TV that's as big as this, and it's $1,900, give or take, would be an option, or I don't know what bulb or whatnot to replace. Either way, the bulb would need to be, something would need to be replaced to at least improve
That thing.
the bulb, yeah, so that, like right now, if you're sitting back here, you can barely read it.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
so I'm
Yeah.
fine with reducing, I'm just saying, at least leave, or don't be shocked when there's a, you know, if that's a $200 or $300 bulb or whatever to replace it.
Mine's like 600, 700.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but they're usually expensive, so that's kind of where it came, is if we're gonna spend $600 for a bulb, do we want to spend, you know, $1,200 more and just get an entire new screen, which I understand we don't need to spend that. You're
Well,
right,
it's-
but it's a not.
Yeah, but that's what I would want to see is what's the justification for, so now I've already got a little more information, you know, you look at that on all kinds of things. If the repair's $500 and something new's $700, well, kind of a no-brainer. And so that's what I would want to look at, and maybe I'd entertain a new whiteboard thing.
I would take buy the whiteboard with the tele laptops. I don't think we need those. And move the 6,000 to the business and resident activity.
So as far as, well, so those were kind of intended to be the work from home, but your home computer can do that and everybody has one, right? Is that where you're going with that thought, Cheryl? Yeah, if you're gonna work from home, you got a
I don't think they're
computer
working
at
from
home.
home. I mean, that often, that
So,
it's necessary to buy a brand new laptop for it, or buy one that can be sent home with someone, maybe.
so the thought on the tele laptops was that we'd buy two and we'd have executives set them up. And then when somebody had to work from home, they would actually check that laptop out. It wouldn't be a purchase for everybody. There would be two that would be checked out so that if somebody had to work from home, the city was providing them a tool to do that with.
I guess if you work from home or work on the road,
Yes.
or maybe you wouldn't have a computer. Does the laptop provide an advantage for working at home that you don't just have with your desktop at home? From the tech world, or what are we looking at there?
It probably would. Right now, in order for me to work from home, I'm using my home computer, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that, but at the same time, it's not very secure.
How often do we replace our computers here in the office?
About the time that they fell apart.
No,
Right now, I know that JJ's using some pretty old computers in his office. I don't know how old JJ's computers are at the office or what they are in the vehicles, but we do replace those in the vehicles every couple of years because they are.
I would suggest upgrading our system as we need it. Some things that people are using now and that I personally use and like is I have a work computer. Like my job requires me to have a computer, but it's a laptop that I plug into screens when I'm in the office and I take it home when I leave. So it kind of serves as a dual purpose. But
we have had that discussion here in the past also.
you know,
Well, maybe we want to kind of revisit that and see where we land with that, where we land with the council room upgrade stuff, and maybe get a little more feedback in those areas coming back. What's our timeline on having to figure out where this money's going? We voted to take it, but now there's going to be a timeline on how long we got to spend it.
Yes, right now it needs to be spent by the end of the year. I've been waiting for an email to come that's going to explain to me how we can extend that into next year. So if we could get the go ahead on some of these, we could get started down the road on those. And maybe
Well, big ticket items in police that's the lion's share of it right there. So those can move forward. And I think the marketing can move forward for sure. The others might be discussion items to pin those down, and it's going to be, not the bulk of it.
I would ask and recommend that you also approve the gift card giveaway activity, and maybe look at those police laptops and maybe the computers for our public. For
So
JJ.
the things we would leave in question would be laptops, council room technology.
Approve 5,000 for the resident activity for now and possibly.
And so really everything else there, we're saying, you know what, we're pretty good with that, right? So it's the laptops and the new technology in here that are the biggest questions.
I would like to see, I mean, the police salaries, that's no brainer. That's exactly what I was talking about before, but I would like to see what the language is first, to be honest.
Okay.
So we can't wait though, like we only have till the end of the year.
Well, some of it wouldn't be in question, and the police stuff won't be in question in the language at all. That's an absolute.
Anything that has to do with the police department is going to be a go, and everything that I've looked at, this other stuff is too, but I'm going to send you that stuff so that you can make your evaluation on it.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, I'd say it's November 10th. I mean, yeah, we don't want to wait till the end of December, but it's not like we're up against the wall here. So no, I think it's worth looking at what the language is, looking at this with a little bit different perspective maybe, and holding off on those other things, at least just for 2 weeks. I mean, we can come back to this in 2 weeks. That gives us time.
Are you having a council meeting the week of Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Yeah. So Logan Shumway, is that a motion then to proceed with the police related stuff and then the rest to be brought back for discussion with the language?
Yeah, I did. Well, the one question, somebody brought it up already, those radios, how many radios is that? That's the 42 grand?
I believe that's, I gotta flip through my other notes here. Is that 5, JJ, or was that 6?
I'm thinking we were thinking it was 5 handhelds and 5 in-car radios.
Okay, because I have 6 on my other notes because we talked about an extra. I don't for
for a spare car if it breaks down.
So that per radio cost starts looking really high. Have we looked at different contract bids on that?
I believe that was the state bid,
That's the
correct?
state bid.
Yeah, it's the one through Premier.
I need to definitely look harder at that. I mean, some things are surprising, but that one's, I don't know, like that one needs, I don't know, some justification in my mind. Some 2 quote. If we only got 1, let's for sure get 2.
This is I'm holding right here in my hand the estimate that the county sheriff received on those radios from Premier, and they are $4,279.13 a piece, plus something else, $328.
In-cars are way more.
For an in-car or a handheld?
They're both about the same amount of money, correct, JJ?
Yeah, they're pretty close to each other.
One for $20.
And is Premier a state contract?
Yes, I believe so. And they'll do all the installation and everything, correct, JJ?
For free.
That's my understanding, yes.
$3,000 a unit.
So we started talking about these radios a few years ago, and that it was coming, that we were going to need to spend it, and when it came, we knew it was going to be a lot of money. So that's up to you guys to stick around and see if we can get something else. But
Yeah. My request
When I
is
look at it, we're saving that money.
we've got to.
Okay, let's go Robert Turk and then Logan Shumway.
Well, the way I'm looking at this is, if that's a need, and to me it sounds like it is, that's money we're saving the taxpayer from having to foot. And they're expensive, but that's an expense we don't have to incur.
All right, so there would still be the question as to whether there's another vendor on state contract that might provide the equivalent or, at the same price, which I don't know that. but it's worth asking the question.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Logan.
Yeah, I was just saying, yes, that definitely needs a second look. And I don't know what the state contract, I don't know what that means necessarily, but yeah, I mean, we need a second quote or look at that a little bit harder.
Okay, so the state contract is state approved vendors and prices that they manage and manipulate and provide. And I won't get the details right on that, and Kim could correct me, but you can go ahead and bid them out to other people too, but it provides more flexibility and the ability to move quicker if you have somebody already on state contract for a price for an item. But that doesn't prohibit us from going outside state contract people to solicit a bid. Is that correct, Kim?
Correct. Typically, when you look at a state vendor, the price is less. That's why the state has given them that.
Right. They won the bid.
Mm-hmm. We buy our vehicles and stuff through a state vendor because we get a much better deal that way.
Yes, no, I appreciate that clarification. That's how they became the state vendor for a given product at a given price. They won the bid, so the state would authorize a municipality or a county to make those purchases without having to go through the bid process. They already did it for you.
Correct.
Okay, but we could still ask for a bid if we chose to.
Sure.
Okay. Well, so refining the motion, then do we leave the radios in the immediate approval, or do we want to see if there's another bid that we can get on those, or run with the state contract and the other? So the police related stuff with or without the radios is an immediate go. And then the gift card giveaway, I'd say we do that and it might get added to. And maybe that doesn't need to be by motion, it needs to be by understanding that that's what we're doing. So the police laptops, police salaries, court computers, I think the phone system issue, probably that's in. The one we have has been bypassed. It's becoming obsolete and can't maintain it. Those are all in. The security system for the court admin. Are we all good on that one? Hearing no negatives, I'd say we're in. The radios, do we want to look and see if there's another bidder out there?
I think we've all said yes. I mean, they may come to the same conclusion, but.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sorry, on the phone system, how old is our phone? Is it 10 years? Is that what we decided?
I'm not sure.
Can you remember, Kim?
No, it's not quite that old. It's probably about 7 years. It's been here almost as long as I have.
Gotcha.
Well, I guess so we look at it, we say, okay, it's pretty much in. What's out is let's contemplate whether there's a better bid on radios. Let's wonder about the council room upgrade technology, what exactly that is, what's in and what's out, and the tele laptops. Are those the questions?
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I mean, the police salaries is the only one to me that's just a done deal. Other than that, I would like to see the language and wait and see. And then another question on the gift cards. How are those going to be determined? Well, I don't know if I caught that, Pratt. What exactly are you going to do there?
We would go out and purchase gift cards from locally owned businesses. So that would literally be the only locally owned businesses. So for example, Ace, we wouldn't. Granted, they're a phenomenal employer and a phenomenal community support, but where that money's probably going to go to a corporate enterprise and then find its way back. You would do the likes of Patio, Homestead. You've got the new ice cream shop. You've got the pharmacy, you've got the flower shop. Anyways, you would go in and you would buy a certain amount of gift cards and you would give them away to the community.
I mean, I'm I'll go ahead and say I'm probably in the minority here, but I don't really love that idea. I mean, it's very much picking and choosing, and how is that going to be determined? And we're only we're only targeting certain businesses, and then you said it was through Facebook. Lots of people don't use that. I mean, to me, it just seems, I mean, it's not a bad idea, but it seems like it's potentially messy. And again, I wonder if we get a few more eyes on this, we might not be able to see some other ways that's a little bit cleaner and hopefully better. Although that's not bad. It just seems, I don't know. I wouldn't support that right now.
It would be good to have some parameters, but the concept behind it, I like that it's more focused on covering both businesses and residents in the community. That's why I like it, because you're giving back to both businesses that are in need and residents that are possibly in need. And so I like it.
So my follow-up question to that is how do we by picking and choosing? I mean, do we buy one from Red's Plumbing too? I mean, how do you segregate them? But not, I don't know. Again, it's not bad. It's just, I don't know. Like,
I guess I didn't take the time, and that's my mistake on that. I should have pinned down Camille, who headed this up. I'm not exactly sure how they did it. That's just how she phrased it. Is they bought it from locally owned businesses, and they said it was a success. They didn't have any negative feedback. I'm happy to whatever. If we don't do it, we don't do it. If we do it, I can lock in some really awesome parameters. I can work with you, Cheryl, on that, and Logan, if you guys wanted. I didn't go that far because we hadn't even approved the fund, so I wasn't going to go spend 10 hours of my day locking in parameters for a no either way. So,
well, okay. So
let me add something here. In a recent conversation we had regarding these funds was that we wanted to look at a way that maybe we could get the benefit of somehow back into the residents' hands. And as we looked at different ways that we could do that and meet the requirements of the guidelines, we thought this would be one way that we could do that. Some of the other communities have done as much as they've sent out tickets, if you want to call them, to their utility customers that they go and use it at a business, and the business turns it in for a refund of a $10 gift card. I think what Pratt did is, because we don't have the time to do all that by the end of the year, this was an option to get some benefit into residents' hands. I agree with Logan that it would be selective, and they're, we're just kind of at the ground level of trying to decide how to make that work. Maybe there's a better route. Maybe there's something better.
Yeah, I think there might be something there, but again, back to that's good. I want to see the language and the utilities thing where it goes to where it's just I don't know. It just needs. It's hard to say yes or no to something that's not fleshed to. I mean, I get proud what you're saying. Hey, I didn't flesh this out, but then it's like, yeah, I don't know how to say yay or nay so much to it. But maybe get some more ideas on that. I say let's just kind of table and think about that until next meeting, and then the big thing in the meantime, the language, and then we can maybe have some the best ideas available at that point.
For me and any other council members, welcome to speak up, but I would like to see Pratt move forward with this business resident activity project so that we can see the parameters and what it would look like. I'm assuming that some of the things they basically, if Kanab City did it?
King County.
Oh, King County did it.
But I mean, they're really only one city.
Right, sure. And they did 20,000?
Yeah.
I just think that it'd be good to see parameters, but I think for me, I'd like to see you move forward with putting together those parameters. Because if we wait 2 more weeks to do that, we're not going to have time. So.
Well, I think that's a fair suggestion. So come back with the idea so we can see what it is. I understand some of Logan's reservations there. How do you decide where it goes? Like giving everybody a little in your utility bill, kind of, at least that spreads it all around evenly. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know enough about how that works to develop much of an opinion on it. But
Yeah, I mean, that's you're perhaps so some direction for me. I mean, that would be the ideal scenario if we found out that it says, hey, you know, the sewer system is some sort of, it's its own private entity or something like that, and we could say, okay, everybody got a gift card next month to do that utility. That would be the idea.
I don't think you can make everyone happy with this. You can't make every resident happy unless you want to give the whole $196,000 back to our residents. I don't think you're going to make every resident happy. And even though I'm not used by local people, so I can, you're not going to buy a gift card from me. I still think this is a good positive activity to support as many people and businesses as we can. I can see that you looked at it from that, from that perspective. So that's my take on it. I don't think there's a way to make everyone happy.
Well, so if the language comes out and if people can brainstorm some ideas, we come back to the next meeting, Pratt could flesh out a little bit about how that worked. And if we have, option A, B, or C that evolves out of that, then we can peg it at the next meeting. But I don't want to wait till the next meeting to start deciding. We maybe want to have some options that we can say which one we're going with. Nothing else is of extreme urgency. So, maybe we do just say, the police salary is a no-brainer. And to me, the security system stuff, I think I would have that in, but we need to know that we're looking at different bids to accomplish the purpose that we're after in each of these cases.
Okay,
So we move forward on finding out what the best deals are. If we get the language out there, those that are interested in reading through that to try to see if there's some different way to look at this, the next meeting we can come back, or anybody that has any of these ideas, bring them in so that they can be written up and quantified so that then we can consider them in the context of a good comparison. Don't wait to present them at the next meeting. Bring them to the staff, bring ideas to the staff so we can look at options and decide what we're going to do. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Yes, that does.
Okay, one more comment from me, and then I'll be quiet. I just emailed you this stuff that we've been looking at on the coronavirus. I emailed that to you already. The other thought is if we get down to the last few minutes of when we need to spend these dollars, we can always put more into police salaries. But I mean, you tell me what you want us to move forward with, and we'll start working in that way. Or if you want us to just wait another 2 weeks, we can certainly do that too.
I think we can nail most of it down in a couple of weeks and see if there's any gaps at that point.
Just nail it all down.
So we'll be looking at competitive bids on some of this stuff that we're contemplating. So we know what to do.
Looked at the used price on a 800 megahertz police band radio was $3,200 for a used one.
Mm-hmm.
Go that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure that works well. Okay, so do we understand our directive there? We're going to try to bring back more options. Any ideas anybody has, bring them to staff, work them out, have them ready to present as options and ideas so we can then decide what direction we're going.
Sorry, can I ask one? But does anyone need me to flesh out the 6-page article more as well? I'd be happy to do so if that helps. I'll kind of
just to say what
how
it
it would
is.
fit under COVID and why, but
Well, yeah, it doesn't hurt to explain why it does. Yeah.
And a 6-page marketing spread is worth $10,000. Again, that seems like a lot for one-time ad. My question would be, is there a better way to spread it out a little bit? But
yeah,
I do think the money should be spent on marketing.
Okay.
Thank you.
So everybody good with kind of where we're at? We know where we are moving forward on that?
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to make one more clarifying comment. The gift cards, then all these things, nothing's bad here. Nothing's bad, but there are definitely more equitable ways to do it. Or more equitable ways than other ways. So that's the point. I never said that any of these are bad.
Right. No, we're just looking at options. What's,
And the big point though is making sure that it gets distributed. And I don't know how it would be more equitable than making utilities somehow. Then I don't know how anybody wouldn't be not happy in that area. And that's the most fair way to do it. So that's the direction we need to look is how this can go into, the police salaries is perfect. And then somehow into, our utility companies.
I just don't think we can put that much money into the utilities for it to be noticeable for customers to appreciate it that much. I
think when we discussed that, it was like nothing.
It'd be like they wouldn't even realize that we'd given them $5 off of their utilities. And people will realize and will notice something like a gift card giveaway. That's a bigger public positive thing, I think, than saying we're going to give everybody a little bit off of their utilities. And I do also just want to say that I really don't think we're going to get a better deal on police radios, and I am completely against buying used ones. If we're going to spend $3,600 on used one, that doesn't make sense to me. Spend the extra for a brand new.
I agree with that. I Googled this, not seeing those prices. I don't know that this is I don't know when getting a second quote on something that seems that expensive would not be a favorable thing. So.
Right. I think, let's get the second quote. But yeah, I would never agree to a used radio, and I had no qualms with what's there. I've ridden with these guys when you get into a dead zone where you don't have any communications, and that's something we need to do. But yeah, if we find something that's better, let's go for it. But I think we need to come to that next meeting and be able to make a decision.
Right.
To go from there. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. So I think we'll have it all pretty much nailed down the next meeting. But bring the ideas in that you have so they can be written up for comparison, so we can make a good choice on it. Let's see, where are we? Resolution appointing UAMPS member representative. I've talked to Terry, and he's up to the calling of being the UAMPS representative. He was confident that that would not be a problem. He can get a little guidance from our previous representative in the short term if he needs to, but he didn't have any problem with that designation. So I would. Yes.
Jeremy sat on the board for UAMPS.
Right.
Does that change, or does he remain sitting on the board just representing somewhere else?
Washington City is not a member of UAMPS.
So do we get to pick someone? I mean, how does that work? Do you know?
I don't know how they choose their board, but Jeremy won't be on it, and we're unlikely to have a member on it for some time unless, however they're processed, then the organization ends up picking our representative to be on the board. I don't know how that evolves exactly. Maybe Ken can enlighten us on that. I don't know. That's all internal to UAMPS as to who serves on the board.
Yeah, I've sat in lots of their meetings, and I can't remember.
That was exciting.
UAMPS.
I actually don't mind it. It's like a weird thing. But
Washington City has a representative, but he is not the city.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'd misunderstood that. You're right. They are in UAMPS. It's just not that their administrator is not their representative. It's some guy in the power company.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that correction.
No problem.
So I'd accept a motion on resolution 11-10-2020-4.
I'll make the motion. 11-10-2020.
Am I on the wrong one? Yeah.
-3.
Yes. Correct.
Appointing Terry Ecker as the UAMPS representative.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's Turk and Monson, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Terry, you're on board. All right, that's that one. Okay, now I'm flipping the page to the renewing the Utah Enterprise Zone. You want to speak to that, Pratt, briefly?
Yes, we've done this twice. The state's looking at ending this program, and so they wanted us to do one last push for 5 years for everyone. And they said even if you just redid it, which we did, just redo it in February, they would like a whole new resolution to go along with that. So it's the entire city limits. It's a tax credit for businesses that bring in new jobs, remodels, things of that nature. It's been something multiple businesses have used. We've had 4 use it in the last year, so we would definitely want to keep that for the next 5 years and incentivize the state to keep it.
As I understand, I think it's actually federal dollars administered by the state. The state determines with their communities who the enterprise zones are. So there's no reason for us to not do this, and those businesses that are able to take advantage of it can get that benefit, I believe.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
That's Cheryl and I mean, Bowers and Perkins. I like using the last names here. So anyway, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, I'll consider that a roll call vote. Technically, when you're on Zoom, you're supposed to do roll call. But even at the state CDBG board, if they call for any opposed and there are none, they consider that a roll call vote. So I think I'm good on that. Now we did E, so item F, COVID-19. The scope of this conversation is not to deal with the politics of anything or the legalities of anything. It is with under the law, what will be the policies of Blanding City for our properties, our employees, and our interactions with the public. And first, I would invite Kendall, if he has any legal advice or suggestions on what we need to know as we consider what our policies are. But in the discussion, I don't want to go beyond what we have the purview over. If we're not responsible for it, there's no point in us talking about it. It wouldn't be productive. So, Kendall.
So I wanted to, because it was brought up, I have the definition here for the on the tree for all.
Mm-hmm.
So the term that I was looking for, and now is event host. An event host is for the tree for all. I think that it would be safe to say that not only would the people who are hosting the event be event hosts, but the city would certainly fall under that definition as well. It's it means any person, and person is a defined term as well, of course, mm-hmm. But it can also mean a government entity. So under that definition, who owns, operates, provides facilities for, or has formal oversight over any of the following where social gatherings occur, and then there's a laundry list.
We're providing the facilities, so that's an easy definition.
Yes.
Okay.
So then you have a whole section under the restrictions, which is paragraph 2 of what an event host would be required to do. And so I think it fits into your conversation as well, not just for the tree for all, but an event host is required to ensure that each individual attending the social gathering wears a face mask, including in areas of ingress and egress. Require at least 6 feet of physical distance between individuals from separate households who attend the social gathering, including in an area of ingress and egress, unless they receive a waiver pursuant to State Health Order 2020-19 or 2020-20. So the tree for all would be pretty difficult. My experience with the tree for all, that would be difficult to do. There's a lot of mingling and a lot of people just walking around and looking at things. So just some food for thought that not only do they have to wear masks, but they also have to ensure the 6 feet of physical distance between individuals from separate households. Number 3 is posting the COVID-19 symptoms and other things on the entrances and elsewhere. And then number 4 is to complete and implement an event management template provided by the state health department. So there's quite a process there. It's not saying that it can't be done. but it would certainly require some juggling in order. Now, this is only in effect currently for the next 2 weeks until, interestingly enough, the Tuesday or the Monday before Thanksgiving. But to say that it won't be extended or whatever else, who knows? So that
They would be safe to assume it would be in place, and if it's not, then they would have a little more breathing room.
right. If you plan on it being in place, then it's easier to go forward. But I think that also touches upon the from a policy perspective for the city, what Logan brought up about requests for wedding receptions and things like that. The city, I think, should assume that if it's at one of our facilities that we are going to have to fall under the requirements of the event host. And that's really all I have to say, unless someone has a specific question for me as part of your conversation. But I think that's the part that's probably the most pertinent for this conversation.
So I would want to encourage us to be able to use the facilities so people can do the things that they want to do, but they would have to be always working with the county health to know what the current requirements are at that time. Because it's in a city facility, we are going to comply. Because as I understand it, individuals have God-given rights, cities do not. Cities have the rights their creator gave them, and their creator is the state of Utah. And so we don't, a city as an entity doesn't have the rights of an individual, even though they should protect the rights of the individual. It's a little different.
Right. So from a policy perspective, though, I don't think it's safe for the county or for the city to say that they're requiring the person who is putting on the event to comply with the health department and work with the health department, because if we're also considered an event host, we should probably be part of that conversation.
You have to have a party involved in that.
So that we don't just take somebody's word for it and they really want to do their event and then we're holding the liability when something bad happens. Or like I said earlier, the reporting process that the state has set up for violations for businesses, I would imagine that it probably will be similar for a situation like this is insane. And it popped up overnight. I mean, it was, I was given the link and walked down to it. And the fact that they're going through the Department of Labor as well as OSHA to enforce it administratively, and the AG's office has committed to enforcing it with their attorneys and everything else. So just keep that in mind, because those are some departments that would also potentially play into the city. And like I said earlier, it doesn't seem like they're playing around, so to speak, like maybe some of their other mandates have been, at least for the next 2 weeks.
So if we authorize an event, we need to have a party to that conversation. And we need to have somebody, a city representative, involved in that conversation to make sure that the city, that the requirements are being met, and that we have assured ourselves that the requirements are being met.
That would be my recommendation. Obviously, the city can do whatever the city wants.
The overtone of this that just is so bothersome is that everybody becomes the citizen police and we turn on each other like rabid animals. It just feels so bad. The feel of this is just not good.
Well, by passing Kendall to go to the Department of Labor, Department of Labor, to me that.
So there's been some conversation that the fine for businesses that has been bounced around is upwards of $10,000. Like which is a lot of money for the businesses, especially in San Juan County. That's a lot of money.
Well, they could apply for a grant, right?
Right, they might be able to offset it with a carriage grant. I don't know.
I don't know. Katie, do you have any insight from just talking to Kirk or in that conversation with County Health that helps us decide, is this a doable thing? We want to do this. Where are we?
I wasn't aware, and when Kirk and I talked today, I wasn't aware that it had gone to Department of Labor, and that makes me super leery. And so I don't have better insight. And I'm not sure that when I spoke with Kirk that maybe he understood how big the tree for all tends to be. I think he thought it might be something like smaller.
Right.
And just when you have the Department of Labor involved like that, a separate entity, I could see that getting messy quickly.
I really don't have any words in them because they're not going to be nice. And
Right.
why don't we move
Well
on to
put.
basketball?
Well, not put. You know, I don't
Well, I mean,
know.
I think all this technically applies. Currently down there, we're having issues at the rec center because the school sports are closed down. So all of the school sports are going to our rec center and doing what they would be doing at the school at our rec center. And so, and it's an issue. I mean, and what do we do about that? Because we're holding that event now. I mean, it's not an event, but they're doing it.
They're doing a member
So
fee.
some of that, as of today, if it's in an organized fashion, like where the team is practicing, some of that might be curtailed as of today, based on a conversation that I had with Kirk about some information that came to the county's attention about that type of thing going on, because the order, that's one thing that the order is very clear on. Private extracurricular stuff originally was cut out. And then yesterday it was amended to clarify and basically open the door for that. And now, so like if you have a private dance studio or a private gymnastics facility, it's treated in the same category as the businesses rather than the same category as the extracurricular, which is what it was as of Sunday. So that changed on Monday for those entities. However, extracurriculars for the school, interestingly enough, with the exception of state championship football games, is completely non-existent for the next 2 weeks. And so and there's not really any workarounds, or there shouldn't be. And so I know that there was going to be a conversation with the school district about that, about, hey, just because you found a unique way around it, the health order says this. And so the school district really, kind of like the city, you're kind of stuck to who created you. And that's what the order is. So that might be, I'd be curious to know, Logan, if that doesn't curtail after today, because that was brought to the county's attention today.
As of this afternoon, it had not changed.
It was pretty late this afternoon when I had the conversation with Kirk. So it'll be, like I said, I'd be curious to know if you, because especially from the city's perspective, you're bringing on some liability by allowing some of that to go on where it's specifically restricted in the thing.
Kim, are you saying that it was as busy this afternoon as it was yesterday? Because I've never seen the rec center as busy as I did yesterday. And it was obviously organized volleyball teams, basketball teams. Every court was full of every kid that won high school or middle school. I was frankly disappointed at the number of kids that were basically defying a state health order.
I know that Kristen was going to stay late tonight to try to help because she was afraid that they would have quite a few in there again today. So she was going to stay to try to monitor and try to control what was going on there until she got some direction from you guys on what you would like her to do in that situation. I haven't heard from her since just before I came to council. She was still down there, but she felt like before that, when I heard from her, she said there was some coming in. So.
Okay, so in a nutshell, is the formal legal advice to curtail these programs that the school is curtailed and pushed off to us? And if it is, then we got to decide whether to follow that advice.
Right. I think just strictly from a legal perspective, there's no gray area in the order when it comes to that, and it's specifically cater to the schools.
Mhm.
And so if they're organized and they're in organized fashion, I think the health department should be, I think the safest thing for the city as the facility operator is to make sure that the health department is aware and let the health department deal with the school district if that's what needs to happen. But I think the city doing nothing is potentially a bad deal for the city.
Okay.
Especially if there were, whether it be from a legal perspective, because I've heard a lot about what the state is looking for enforcement against businesses. I have not heard about what the enforcement would look like against cities or counties or school districts or other entities. But I can imagine if they're looking at such heavy guns against businesses, I can't imagine that they're going to go any softer on local governments. But that's just a speculation at this point because I don't know anything about that. And so that's what I'm relying on to give you that advice. Is I would be a little concerned about being implicated as being part of that.
Okay, Kim Palmer.
Okay, I just got a text from Kristen. She's watching because she's very concerned about this, and she says it hasn't been as busy tonight as it was last night. I asked her for a rough number, and she hasn't texted back. So it's not been as busy tonight. So maybe they are getting that word then, Kendall.
Well, so Kendall's advice is that if these are organized school groups, that we should ask the county to interact with the school district to cut that. But we could just say, hey, we can't allow these organized school groups.
Well, okay, so here, Mayor,
Yes.
here's the challenge. I did talk with the girls that were working at the front desk yesterday, and they said that and I saw there wasn't a coach there, but the coaches had given all of the, volleyball team there, but I'm not sure. But they were told to still go shoot on their own. And then the kids on their own all went together to the rec center at the same time. And I do know that one of the members of the team, his parents said to him, you will not go down to the rec center when everyone else is down there. You will go down there on your own. So it was, it wasn't necessarily organized groups, but it was bigger groups than I've seen there in months.
If I can, Mayor,
Yes.
that's why to me it would make more sense. The city could cover itself by going to the county health department and saying, hey, this is what we're seeing, because they've already had communications with the school district.
Right.
And so let them do what their job is. And then that doesn't leave your poor front desk employee to try to figure out whether this is an organized or pseudo organized with the school team or not. Pass that off to the health department, document that you pass it off to the health department, and let them coordinate with the school district. And then the city has done what the city needs to do, and let the other entities do what they need to do. That's why that would be my recommendation, especially based on what Kate.
So it would end up falling back to the school district to say, okay, you can encourage your kids to go and do their own practice, but inform them that they should not all do that at the same time.
Right.
It would become the school policy that would say, this is how you need to make that happen.
Right.
Am I reading that right?
That would be the ideal, but again, the school district has the ability to do whatever they want to do, but then it shifts the liability away from the city. And that's really, from a policy perspective, that's really the ideal thing that you can do, is to try to shift some of that away. And that's a very easy and very thorough way of doing that.
On this, Logan Monson,
Well,
other
I
than
mean,
frustration.
Lots of frustration, but, well, I think we got to this by trying to decide if we were going to keep our city programs going through all this, which to me, it seems like we just can't. I mean, I don't know if there's a way around that. Maybe there is. Maybe we can do something. I don't know. It doesn't seem like we.
one recreation program, right?
Yeah, so what's happened there, just so everyone's aware, is I told Kristen, because David's out, that we would need to postpone for 2 weeks and that we would go from there. I mean, if we can make the season extend a little bit longer and make it worth it, great. If not, we'll have to look at getting money back to people and doing that. But as of right now, coaches have informed their players that it's been postponed for 2 weeks.
And something that's ironic about that is if we were still doing our city rec, if the girls basketball was doing their practice, then none of those courts would have been available for these groups of people that wanted to come down and use them. And so it's almost like by us following what we should have done, then we end up opening the door to large groups to come to.
So
But at that age, they want to still get together and they still want to do their sports, but there's a reason behind this public health issue.
So D1 on the order also says, except as provided in 2D2, which is limited to intercollegiate professional athletic events or high school football practice or game, basically for state championships. Those are the only exceptions. So except those two exceptions, a person or an entity may not participate in or be an event host for a social gathering that is an organized athletic or sporting event or extracurricular activity. So it doesn't even have to be, you may be running afoul if it's just organized as such. It depends on how far you want to read that. And again, as the lawyer, I'm just going to give you that and tell you, but you shouldn't participate in or be an event host for an organized event.
So we're potentially setting ourselves up for anything by being a host to anybody that enters the facility.
Depends on how far you want to push that, but yeah.
I mean, it depends on how far the people that want to turn us in want to push that, which they will. I mean, it's what we're living in.
So are gyms covered in there? Did they cover gyms?
So initially, even private gyms were said that it was very clear that it was no. So in this order, it says that. In the amended order from yesterday, they said that if it's a privately owned type of facility, so we have a couple of those around here, but then you also have, in northern Utah, you have your Planet Fitness and 24-hour fitness and those types of organizations, they then fall under the business entity. So they have to follow those rules that require face masks all the time by patrons as well as instructors, social distancing. So certain events, gymnastics, you might be able to do with social distancing and face masks. Ballet, you might be able to do. Karate, probably not. Wrestling, boxing, probably not. Basketball, probably not. And so that's where, as of yesterday, that's where the governor, he shifted the line slightly and allowed some of those, but some of those are still exempted just based off of the requirement of needing to social distance.
So, or do we fall, I mean, does our rec center with people wanting to go and participate in whatever's there, if everybody's in a mask and it's their own individual time and it's not organized, we're still good? We fall under kind of that business.
An argument could certainly be made. Business is not defined. And so
They paid to go there.
right, and it's you're trying to at least break even, right, with the events with the rec center, and so the argument could be made, but again, that's the hard part about this for a city or a county perspective is the order talks a lot about individuals and it talks about event hosts, which I think the city would fall under that in those scenarios. But from a gymnasium or an extracurricular type of situation, I think we could make the argument that we are that we're a business when it comes to that. And so if we require everybody to social distance and mask up, the problem with that is your gyms, your courts are being used by people playing basketball or even volleyball, and
You can't social
the idea
distance.
of staying 6 feet apart is is absurd if you think about it in either one of those situations. Those are required.
I have a question. I'm reading this email I got from the state on this from about the governor's mandate. And there's 2 points I'll read. Point 2, exercising more caution when socializing with people who are not part of your household. Organizers of mass events that don't comply with the mandate will face fines of up to $10,000. So would that be us? That's the question I have. And then it says postponing all sports and extracurricular activities with some narrow exceptions, and you've mentioned those, including city recreation for 2 weeks. And so that's what I'm reading off of the email that came from the governor's declaration.
So we've done that, but do we allow people to come and practice in our facility? If we work with the school district to tell them not to come as organized, quasi-organized.
So
groups?
one thing I'd bring up is when we started all of this back in March, we were closed for a
March of
little bit,
2011.
and then we opened back up slowly, and we had different things in place. Do we need to go back to some of those things to cover us in the sense of we're operating this as a business? So we post that we require the face mask, we require this, you can't do that, like all of these things, so that if this were to come down to something, we at least have a notice to everybody that's using it and plan to use the facility as such. I mean, I don't know,
We
but
would have
that's,
to police it somewhat. We would have to go out in the courts and in the exercise rooms and say, you can't be playing basketball unless you're 6 feet apart, which isn't basketball. So, I mean, if we post the rules as they pertain to business, and then we do have some level of enforcement that says we're going to come and check and see if you're in compliance with these rules. And as far as the quasi-organized groups, if we have the health department approach the school district and say, tell your kids they can't plan to go together, they just need to do their thing. Can we pull that off, or do we just say because how does somebody at the desk define who's the organized group and who just happened to show up at the same time? Well, sometimes it would be very evident, but even then, you got somebody at the desk making that call. That's really not their responsibility. They don't have that. That's above their pay grade to make that call. Kim Palmer.
So when they let us, and I sent you and Logan both that picture, that list of stuff that Kristen had, when they allowed us to start opening back up in May, the health department gave us a list of guidelines, and Kristen told me it worked really well. What they asked us to do, people were very willing to follow those guidelines and social distance. We did extra cleaning and all the stuff that was on that list. And she told me today it worked really well. They were surprised, but it did work really well. So maybe what we need to do is just ask Kirk how he would recommend that we move forward on that and take his directive on that. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because if we already had that set up and had those parameters and people were used to that, then the difference now is that there are these organized groups that they're wanting to do that, and that would have to be addressed at some level. But I agree, if we can say we're going to the rules that we used at this time, and if Kirk signs off on those and goes, those rules work, we put them in place, we post them clearly, we advertise it, and we expect that people will be adults or supervised by adults and act accordingly.
I think that would, from a liability to the city perspective, that would be good, because you're then relying on the public health director to sign off on those guidelines. They're probably going to be different than what you had in March or April, because this
starting point,
because this order looks different,
right.
but that would shift some of that liability. Then the only other problem at that point is those rules and policies are only as good as the enforcement.
Right.
And so how the city would probably, the council, I'm sure your rec department is probably hoping that there will be some direction with regards to how what's expected of them. Is the front desk part-time employee supposed to enforce that against a bunch of high school boys playing basketball that are going to be thoroughly ticked, or is there going to be some other some other measure, because a policy it can get you in trouble if it's not enforced appropriately as
Right.
well.
Yeah,
You're
you
almost
can-
better off to not have the policy than to not enforce the policy you have.
You have a policy and you don't enforce it, then you're guilty of infraction of your own rule.
Yes.
And yeah, we don't have that. Okay, so how do we move forward with taking what policies we had, working with Kirk to refine them to our current situation? We can get them published, but what's our mechanism there? Who runs with this?
Policy. I mean, I think we go through Kirk and find out what do we need to do to,
Give us the parameters.
yeah, and then I think
And we post it.
do that, and I mean, then who enforces it? I don't know if there's really much to be enforced other than, like Kendall mentioned before, maybe in notifying the school district of any of those groups that we have.
Or anybody else that shows up and is just in violation
Sure.
of the order. You gotta have somebody more than just a desk front kid walking out, You have some full-grown men playing basketball,
Yeah.
who's, somebody there has to be a
What have we
presence of
done in the
authority
past?
enough
Do you
to
know,
make it
Kim?
happen.
So what we did before was they actually, because we had to limit how many people could come in and participate, they actually took, I want to call it reservations, but they had a list so that they were keeping the numbers down, so that they didn't get, too many in there at one time. And that may be what worked, is that by limiting the number that was in there, they didn't run into too many problems, because people would call and schedule a time to be in there. And then if they felt like they were getting overloaded with the numbers, then they limited the time that people could be in there so that everybody got a turn. And it worked really well. And I don't think that our staff was any different then than it is now, other than we had been closed for a while and people were excited to get back. And so they were more willing to follow the rules. But I think by limiting, and I'm sure that Kirk will have some guidance in how many we should have in there at one time, and that may help control it.
As far as who does it, I mean, I think we could probably rely on David and Kristen. And honestly, I mean, I hate to even mention it, but we have our own police department, and I would never, ever want our front desk to have to call the police on someone at the rec center. But if we need to have something in place saying this is what we do in case of, I don't know.
The one thing that may be different, and again, Kirk's the guy to go to, but the one thing you will find that's different is back then it was social gatherings were people, individuals, no more than so many individuals, and so you could do it by square footage and that sort of thing. Under this order,
You have
it
to
is
live in the same house.
people who live in the same house, and so it is going to be a little trickier, because you could technically have them playing basketball as long as it was only 5-on-5. Because that was only a social group of 10 people, a gathering of 10 people. And that's not the rule here. And so there might be, while I think that's a good starting place, you're still going to have some enforcement issues, because if 10 people are allowed in there, but they're all playing basketball and they're all, and it's, the middle school basketball team or whatever it is, that could potentially be an issue. So I think enforcement will be a little different this time than it was in March, April, May.
Let's talk to Kirk, because to me, I don't want to sit here and make a plan all night and then we don't have anything.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, this goes away. I mean, I don't know, but, and then we've made this plan that just dissolves, but I think we talk to him and see what we can do first. And
Okay, sounds like a volunteer to talk to Kirk and get us a checklist.
okay,
You want
I
it?
talk to him.
Have him give us the parameters, we can post that and run with it. If we need to run an officer through there once or twice every evening, just to walk through, just to be a presence, just to see how things are going. I mean, I just don't like it. I don't like anything. I don't like the whole discussion. I don't know what to do with it.
I mean, to kind of go back to what Kendall was saying, I totally understand that, but it's like the grocery store. The grocery store is not counting who doesn't
Right.
live
No,
where and
right.
how they do it. And
Right.
it's like
They're
really
counting on
like,
people to be adults and look at the parameters and do their thing. That's what I want
But
to
I
know.
get what you're saying.
Well, but the
for
grocery
sure.
store, under the order, would be required to face masks and 6-foot social distancing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, that from a business perspective, that's where you're at. The only difference is here is if we're taking the business approach, you run into problems in the weight room or on the treadmill. That's probably not as big of an issue as, you know, you can manage it more there than out on the courts playing basketball.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I think it's time to talk to Kirk. I'd say post the requirements,
Post the parameters and
parameters,
expect
post
people
what
to
Kirk
do
tells
it.
us to post. And I don't think it hurts the front desk to, if they see somebody who's violating the rules, say, hey, reminder of the rules,
Right.
they're posted over there. I think people will be understanding of that. I don't think people are gonna,
Only
and
if
if
they
a
get
whole
a
group of
hassle.
people shows up, then have them call David or Mayor.
Right.
I'm just kidding. Have them call David and tell David, hey, I got this whole
Got
high
a
school
big
team that
group.
showed up and,
I'm not sure I can
yeah,
handle it.
I don't think.
Right.
Or
You
have
just
them-
gotta hope that people are gonna go, okay, these are the rules for me to use this place. And the
Yeah.
undertone there is
Want it to stay open.
if people
Yeah.
don't stick with the rules, we'll lose it. And I mean, it's just the whole. I could just say so many things that aren't gonna do us any good. I just. I
So
don't know.
Logan Monson, I had a question from a parent. Okay, we're closed down for 2 weeks. Will we actually extend the season though? If for 2 weeks after we get to go back? Did you hear me?
Sorry, no.
We'll
I'm-
extend the season 2 weeks.
I was gonna say I had a parent of a girl that's signed up for basketball, and they were understanding of the mandate, but they wanted to know if the city would extend their season after this 2-week period's over.
And I haven't had an extensive conversation with anybody about it. I just, when I talk to Kristen, that would be the plan, is to extend and get the same amount of games in that they had scheduled. And that we would keep them posted if anything changed. We didn't want to say anything for sure, just because we don't know for sure where this is going, so.
But that's on our radar.
Yeah, that would be ideal, is if we could just extend the season 2 weeks, get them the same amount of games, the same amount of time.
Play the boys for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we might not even, I mean, just play that out and see what happens.
So we'll get our parameters from Kirk. We'll post them clearly. We'll inform the public the best we can. People will do what we're asking them to do by and large. If there's a little problem and somebody has to mention, hey, you know, this doesn't really fit. If there's more problem that somebody at the desk doesn't feel you can handle, they've got David or the next hierarchy that comes down.
And there is a
Hopefully it never
security
goes
guard there.
past that.
We do have a security person at the rec center as well, Monday through Thursday from 6 to 10.
Well, there you go. You got
It's not like
somebody-
a armed person.
No,
or
but at least
anything.
you
It's
have
just
an
an
adult-
employee that is there for security.
Oh.
You have an adult presence who can
Kind of always have it.
kind of make sure that things are good.
But they know to call David and Kristen too, but yeah.
Okay.
I'll-
Well, it
go
sounds
that
like
route.
we've already got that covered then. I
We'll go
think
that route.
I expect people to maybe not like things, but they'll work with it because that's where we are. And I don't like it and I'm trying to work with it. And
I would just recommend on anything we print that we put by order of the governor.
exactly.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
would absolutely agree
Not by
with
order of
that.
the city, but by order of the governor.
I
And that's what I'll say, I think we should
the
do
sign
our
on,
best we can for 2 weeks, and if this extends beyond that, then I personally think we have to have a different conversation, but.
I totally agree with that. The sign on my door is going to be died of COVID-19, November 8th, 2020. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I just, I can't say anything because I'm not going to say good things. It's just so frustrating and I don't know. Okay, we know where we're going with it and I think people will work with it because that's where we are. Okay, any information items?
I have an information item that I'd just like to have it entered into the record. Before Jeremy left, it's kind of been a little while now, we got the email from UDOT saying that we did not meet the warrants for an overhead traffic signal on Main Street where the school children cross. And I'd just like for that to be in the record. that we missed out on that opportunity because we did not go down to 3 lanes. I think that it needs to be out there that that's not going to happen.
Okay, it's in the record. What was you had a comment to that?
Well, I was just gonna ask if we could get an update, and maybe we need to wait till the new city manager is in
Oh,
place.
as far as
Get
signage
an
and
update
stuff?
on our signage, and they also said they would push for that anyway. And so we need them
They
to do
declined
that.
it. It's a no-go. That was
We
the
pushed it and they
letter.
declined it?
They said, we're not doing it. And the signage is on hold for budget. Those were the two messages.
Sorry, I missed that.
The increased safety signage down here is a no-go. The intersection signage is on budget hold.
We used to get, I don't know if it was weekly or every other, I don't know, updates on numbers for COVID specific to the areas and the breakdown. Are we still getting, do you get those, Kim?
Yeah, she sent them out earlier today.
I actually have them right here as a.
I've seen them today because I called and asked, but
Oh, okay.
to me, I just like to see those more often.
If I get them, I'll forward them to you
Okay.
if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be
Yes, me
perfect.
too, please.
Okay,
I assume that you were getting them and decided today maybe you wasn't, so I will forward them on to you.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else on information? Don't know of any closed session required.
I will make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that.
It's Munson and Perkins, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
I'm gonna go home and just be frustrated and somewhat